I'm trying to adjust my Lord Four quad hair here. I cannot wait until this grows out. It is so distracting to look at it because it's so hideous and I hate it so much. Hello everyone and welcome to today's video. We are doing a review slash breakdown of the TV show The Watchmen. Watchmen, if you guys don't know, this is a new TV, well, relatively new TV series on HBO. It aired in 2019. This TV show is actually based off of a comic book, a DC comic book series by the same name, but I never read them. I did watch the movie, the 2009 movie. It was by Zack Snyder. I actually really loved the movie. I thought it was like a really great movie. It was a very different movie than what you expect from a superhero movie. It's definitely not kid friendly and it's definitely a lot more darker in the tone, and I really loved the ending and the philosophical messages behind it of like who's really the villain and who's really the hero and all this other stuff. So it was a really good movie. I really liked it. So this TV show is gonna be nothing like the movie. I already knew that going into this because this TV show takes place in modern times. 2019, I think it was actually 2019 that it took place in. It's gonna be very different from like the movie, which took place in the 80s and focused on the Watchmen group. This show is obviously going to be a lot different than the movie. So going forward, if you do want to watch this show and you have watched the movie, do not expect these two to be the same thing because they're both loosely based on the comic book series. They both draw inspiration from the comic book series, but this TV show is not going to be anything like the movie. So with that being said, let's go ahead and talk about the plot of the TV show. So in Tulsa, Oklahoma, there is a white supremacist group called the 7th Cavalry, spelled with a K, that terrorizes the entire city. On a night called the White Night, they target the Tulsa police force, killing most of the cops except two, Angela Abar and Judd Crawford. So this prompts like the police force to begin covering their faces with masks so their identity remains hidden. Masked vigilantes at this point in their timeline, they've been outlawed for the most part and they have been frowned upon. However, because of this White Night attack on the police officers and the fear of new police officers joining the force, obviously they're going to get targeted, so nobody wants to join a police force, and if you don't have police, you're not going to have order and you're going to be all about that chaos. They actually get another law to pass that says like, oh yeah, cops can wear masks for their own safety. So the cops, for the most part, like the regular non-important cops, they wear like yellow masks to kind of cover like half their face, and then the detectives get to wear like actual costumes, full-on costumes. So for years the cops kind of hide behind their masks while the 7th Cavalry also hide behind their own masks, which is a mask that is made to be like the Rorschach mask, which is a vigilante from the 80s. When the chief of police, Judd Crawford, the guy we talked about who was one of the survivors, he is actually murdered in present time, and this prompts a war, or at least tension, between the cops and the 7th Cavalry. So Angela Abar, the other survivor from the White Night, she, to the rest of the world, is retired. She's a retired cop after getting shot. She's like, screw that. And everybody thinks that she is now just a retired cop about to open a bakery. In reality, it's just kind of like a front. She is still working with them. Obviously, now that she has kind of this target on her back, she doesn't want people to know that she's still working for the police force, and now she kind of goes under the code name Sister Night, and she dresses kind of like a nun. She goes on a search basically to discover the truth of who and what and how and why killed him. It's kind of like a journey of self-discovery for her. She finds out the truth about her history. We only see 3 of the original Watchmen members in this television series. We have Dr. Manhattan, Lori Blake, Adrian Veidt. Lori Blake, she now works for the FBI under the Vigilante Task Force. So she's sent to Tulsa to uncover the truth about the murder of Judd Crawford. Dr. Manhattan, he is the world's strongest, powerfulest being. He kind of abandoned Earth so that he could live a peaceful life on Mars because he was totally done with humans crap. And everybody thinks that he is now, I mean, he is still on Mars. The world kind of misses Dr. Manhattan. Not everyone, of course, but like a lot of people do. And then there's Adrian Veidt, who is considered the world's smartest man. He played an elaborate hoax on the world to kind of prevent nuclear holocaust in the 80s. The hoax is basically he dropped a giant squid on Manhattan and killed 3 million people, and it was supposed to be like an interdimensional squid, and so everybody's now freaked out about the fact that interdimensional species and interdimensional attacks can come at any moment, so it kind of kept the peace between everyone. In the current time, he is kind of pronounced dead because nobody knows where the heck he went. He's not. With a lot of the plot going on, I would recommend watching the movie before watching the show. Or probably even better, reading a comic book. Probably the best thing to do is read the comic books, not watch the movie. But if you're lazy like me, just watch the movie. It's actually only 3 hours, which is a long time for a movie. But it's a really good movie. And again, you have to keep in mind that the movie and the TV show aren't going to be the same thing, But events that happened in the past, for example, as I was explaining with the 80s and the threat of nuclear war and how Adrian Veidt stopped it, aren't really fully explained or fully explored in the TV show. They kind of breeze past it as if they expect you to already know what's going on with that. There's like other things that they don't explain as well, not just that. Like Rorschach, for example, they don't explain exactly who he is or why he is important to the 7th Cavalry and why maybe they're using his name in the wrong way, or what his journal did, or the content of what his journal had in it, and why that kind of changes the world today, and why Adrian Veidt's plan probably didn't go accordingly as he wanted it to. It's just like they kind of expect you to know these things, or if they, you know, if they do kind of show it, they breeze past it and don't really spend time on it. So, I mean, it is a lot better if you get some background knowledge. It's not necessary to completely understand the story. Like, you're not going to get lost if you don't watch the movie or read the comics. You don't get lost. They explain it well enough. They just breeze past it and expect you to keep up. So, for some people, it can be kind of hard if you don't know who the characters are talking about, or, you know, whatever. And it's also just more rewarding as, like, a viewer, if you're, like, a fan of the movie or the comic books, just to, like, be able to pick up these Easter eggs and enjoy it. Now, this is supposed to be a 1-season show. However, I have no idea. I'm hearing things through the pipeline, and I'm not sure if that's true or not. For the most part, the showrunner has said that this is a 1-season show. They are not going to go and do another season unless there is something worthwhile. And I think they did a great job of accomplishing everything they needed to in the story, like setting up the conflict, resolving the conflict, world building, all that stuff. They did like an excellent job from beginning to end, and I think it was just like a really great show to watch, and I think it was very interesting, and it definitely kept me engaged throughout the entire time. So let's go ahead and talk about the conflict. So I know a lot of people had problems with the political and social drive behind the show and behind the writing and the plot. The show, it depicts a lot of racial and cultural divides in the 1900s and in today's times. There's like a comparison of what it was like in the past and what it is like today. In the very first episode, we see what they call the Black Wall Street in Tulsa, the Tulsa Massacre, and it was a real event that happened. So there's like a lot of real life events that happen in the show, or real life inspired events that happen in the show, that we see as kind of like an example of the racial divide and the abuse of the system. Normally, I'm not a big fan of political or social statements in movies or TV shows. I hate movies that try to enforce ideas upon us, political ideas, social ideas. It is very annoying for me. If you're going to put a political statement, then I should be able to get there on my own terms. Don't shove it in my face. I do not like it when people do that. It's getting really bad nowadays. Hollywood is getting really bad at that, of cramming them down your throat, writers being so non-discreet about it. People don't like that. People don't like it when you try to force ideas upon them. They need to be able to get there on their own, and you as the writer are supposed to pretty much lend a helping hand. It's okay to have a message or a statement in your movie or show. Give them the facts, give them this and that, and let them develop their own decisions. This show actually doesn't have a problem with that. I was actually really surprised, because the opinions that I heard on the show, with a lot of people saying that it is just too much shoving it in your face. Going into it, I was kind of a little scared, because I do not, again, like I said, like political messages in my movies or TV shows. So I was a little bit scared, but it's not that bad. It really isn't. In fact, I didn't get that vibe from it, that in your face. It was just really good storytelling on their part. They used real life events and real life situations to kind of inspire the events that happen in this show, and there's nothing wrong about it. They don't really shove a message in your face. The writers did a really good job at handling those types of topics. So that is enough for conflict. I'm done talking about conflict. So let's talk about the setting and tone. Watchmen takes place in 2019 in Tulsa, Oklahoma. But just because it takes place in kind of current times in a real world place, that is crushing my toe. Doesn't mean that it's going to be exactly like what today's times are, because again, this is based on a comic book, so things are going to be a little bit like an alternate universe type situation. For example, in this world, America won the Vietnam War, and Vietnam is now the 51st state. Dr. Manhattan is like this big blue superhero that can do a lot of things and a lot of damage, and is kind of like used as a weapon. They have squid rain that just occurs. They think it's normal that squids are raining from the sky. It's basically Australia though. Their technology is obviously a lot better than ours. And also the whole police thing, like police can wear masks now, and mask vigilantes are a huge thing over in that universe. So the show definitely gives like a mystery sort of cop thriller vibe. So if you're really into that, this show is definitely for you. You're trying to figure out who murdered who, kind of, and the truth behind the motivations of various groups like the 7th Cavalry and the True Corporation, or even like the Watchmen themselves, like the individual characters of the Watchmen. The only problem that I had with kind of the tone of this show, you gotta keep in mind that Watchmen is a DC comic. It just doesn't give me that DC comic vibe. With DC, you get like that city of the hero. It's always dark and gritty. You feel dirty about being in that city. Like that's always like the DC city. They did it with Batman, obviously, Gotham. This show did not. It really did not. It just didn't feel like a DC comic book or anything inspired by DC comics. So it was just kind of weird with that. It is kind of like good and bad because it does make it unique. It's able to stand out on its own. However, it feels really disconnected from the universe and the inspiration that it was originally based on. So with that, like I don't know if I have a problem with it or not. It's just kind of like, I like it, but I don't. So I think Watchmen has a really good pace to it. There's really nothing to complain about the pace. It starts off like slow because like I said, it was kind of like mystery-esque and like cop thriller type situation going on. So it is obviously going to start out slow and then just kind of, you know, take off at the end there. I think it stays relatively consistent between like the episodes, between the characters and the plot. This story does operate on a relatively linear timeline, but it does have a lot of flashbacks. With flashbacks, you have to use them creatively. Like I think flashbacks are a little bit better than just exposition and dialogue. However, flashbacks can get quite annoying if they're used way too often. This show uses quite a lot of flashbacks, but I think it works really well for the story at hand. In one episode, they did it so creatively. It was whenever Dr. Manhattan kind of had like the episode focused on his storyline, and we got to kind of like see the back and forth between how he sees time, because Dr. Manhattan doesn't see time as we see it, and we kind of see that with the flashbacks. I thought that was really creative how they stitched together like the flashbacks and then the transitions. Oh my gosh, that was really good. I really liked that episode. I really liked how they used the flashbacks to their advantage and created something that, you know, as the audience we can kind of see how Dr. Manhattan sees time and the world. So characters. For the most part, I really did enjoy the characters of this show. A lot of them were very real and very gritty and pretty much what you expect from a universe like that. And they were very easy to sympathize with. And I really liked that a lot of the characters, like especially the main characters, they weren't perfect. They were badass for sure, but they weren't perfect. They had their flaws and they worked through those flaws, which is, I always look forward to shows like that. I think HBO does a really good, I don't know, HBO just does a really good job at creating characters. They give you that element of realism and it just makes you appreciate it even more. So let's go ahead and start talking about the individual characters. So we have Angela Abar. I kind of spoke a little bit about her persona is called Sister Night. She was one of these survivors of the White Knight. To the world, she sort of gave up her copness, and in reality she's still working as a detective. So her story, as I was kind of explaining with the plot, is definitely one of self-discovery. Her parents died when she was really young and she had to witness it, and she kind of grew up as an orphan. She then joined the police force and kind of fell in love with Dr. Manhattan. So most of her story, we follow her trying to discover her heritage, because after she kind of falls in love with Dr. Manhattan, they decide to move back to Tulsa because she heard that is where she is originally from. Seeing as how she does have a very traumatic past, she has built up like a tough, thick skin for herself. She's a very strong-headed woman, a very strong character, does not put up with people's crap. She hides her emotions. She does have flaws and issues and vulnerabilities, and I really enjoyed her as the lead character of this and following her story throughout this. Next, we'll talk about Will Reeves, which is her grandfather, who was the original Hooded Justice. Throughout the story, we kind of get snippets of his life story and kind of how his life is really tied to Angela's life and how they're really similar in that way. In the current timeline, he is a 104-year-old man in a wheelchair. In his past, he, like I said, was the OG Hooded Justice. Real quick, Watchmen features a show within itself called The Minutemen. This show focuses on the first group of vigilantes called the Minutemen. So it's interesting to see how the world views Hooded Justice, because everybody thinks Hooded Justice is a white man. In reality, he's not. He just wore white paint around his eyes because that was safer than to show his real skin color. It's like really interesting to see how the world views him and how he actually is the Hooded Justice. In the beginning, he was definitely a character shrouded in a lot of mystery because he was just this dude, a 100-year-old dude in a wheelchair that hung the chief of police, and you're just like, how? But then you kind of like learn, oh, he's Angela's grandfather, oh, he's the original Hooded Justice, and you just learn a lot about his backstory. So going throughout the show, you learn more about him. You see that he is a good man with a troubled past, and I really liked his ending too, with Angela giving him that chance and allowing him to get to know her and her children. It was just a really good ending for him, I think. So moving on to Laurie Blake, Silk Spectre. So in the 80s, Laurie took up the mantle of her mother's vigilante ways, becoming the second Silk Spectre of the Watchmen group. However, kind of in between that and the present time, she has had different opinions on vigilantism. Vigilantism. I don't know. Okay, give up. I'm assuming it's because she was there whenever Adrian kind of pulled that trick and killed 3 million people, and she was kind of sworn into secrecy not to tell anyone in hopes to keep the peace. So I'm assuming that's why she just kind of turned around on, you know, vigilantes and decided to join the FBI to go hunt them. Her character adds very dark humor to the show. She is definitely a lot like Angela, the fact that she's headstrong, which definitely leads the two to clash very often in the show. And she doesn't put up with anyone's crap, which is also a really good thing. And I like that she's one of the good guys. Really liked her character. Next character, Adrian Veidt, or Ozymandias. He's the world's smartest dude. He created the hoax that interdimensional beings could attack at any moment. In this story, he kind of spends most of his time stuck on Dr. Manhattan's project of creating life. However, he's not on Mars, as people originally thought. He's actually on a moon orbiting Jupiter, Euphoria? I don't remember how they pronounced it, I'm sorry. They do this like really cool comparison of him to God, where he kind of creates life. And Angela jokes about it, like, did it take you 7 days? And he's like, no, it took me like 2 minutes. And it was just really funny. The philosophy and like the religious undertones, I really like them. I really do enjoy shows that like play around with that kind of stuff. And Adrian and Dr. Manhattan kind of chatted out, and Adrian was kind of expressing how much he would enjoy being in a paradise. So Dr. Manhattan's like, okay, bye. So he sends Adrian there. In the beginning, you kind of see him enjoy like the mansion and, you know, being there and having his own freedom. He is surrounded by 2 servants mainly, Crookshanks and Mr. Phillips. I kind of like that transition of seeing him like the place to slowly begin to despise everything about it. So I actually really enjoyed his storyline, even though like it was basically him trying to figure out an escape room the entire time. There's like this really thought-provoking moment where the game warden is revealed to be just another one of Mr. Phillips doing what Adrian wanted him to do. Adrian told him that he wanted him to be his adversary and to fight against him. He thought that people under control would make the world a better place and make him happy, make everyone happy. But in reality, humans following every single order is just boring. He wanted and needed that chaos and disorder to feel happy. Reality is, it's not gonna be that way, and Adrian kind of seen that firsthand. He got stuck in a prison of his own creation, which I thought that was like a really thought-provoking moment and like really philosophical, and I really enjoyed it. So let's go ahead to Wade Tillman, or Looking Glass. Wade is definitely one of my favorite characters. His character has a lot of depth. He was one of the survivors of that interdimensional attack on Manhattan, and of course because of this he kind of has that survivor's guilt and that trauma. Whenever he actually learns the truth about Adrian playing a hoax on the world, he becomes almost broken because he's lived most of his life with that idea of like fear and trauma. A lot of the themes throughout Watchmen is the idea of putting on a mask to hide that pain, and his character, we definitely see that, and he puts on that mask to hide what he is truly feeling. He has a really likable personality. I think he's really straightforward and to the point, and his serious, like very serious demeanor can lead to very funny moments. Next is Lady True. So she is the world's smartest woman and the daughter of Adrian Veidt. While she's not necessarily relatable or easy to sympathize with like a lot of these characters, she's still a really fun person to follow. Lady True runs a $1 trillion corporation and took over Adrian Veidt's company while he went away, and she definitely inherits his intelligence. Like I said, she's the world's smartest woman. You can't just get that from anyone. You have to get it from Adrian Veidt, the world's smartest man. Like him, she has visions of reshaping the world and kind of her idea of what would be perfect and wanting to control it and creating a utopia. One thing that she created is the Millennium Clock, and throughout the show we kind of hear like the Millennium Clock a bunch of times, and we're trying to figure out what the heck is the Millennium Clock. We see it's a big old structure, but like what is it exactly? So it's not until the very end that we find out that she's been creating sort of a way to suck up Dr. Manhattan's powers and transfer it into her own self. Her goal is to reshape the world, and the only way that she thinks that she can do it is if she becomes a god, and the only way to get the powers of a god is to take them from Dr. Manhattan. So that's exactly what she does. She has good intentions. Like, I'm not saying she has bad intentions, but she definitely doesn't have the right intentions. And as Adrian put it, if you're trying to obtain the powers of a god, you most likely don't deserve them. Like, it's going to corrupt you and it's going to change you. So her character does end up dying at the end of this for good reason, but she was definitely a fun character to follow throughout. So let's get on to our last character that I want to talk about, which is Dr. Manhattan. In this show, he also goes by Cal, and his original human name was John Osterman. So he goes by any of those. He wasn't always a god. Obviously, he was a human beforehand, and then kind of a science experiment went wrong and he got these powers. It was very interesting to kind of see that, like, a man who no longer feels fear and always knows and is for sure about his future, be willing to risk something, be willing to risk having that power and having that knowledge to just be happy with somebody. So it's like, you're kind of a good guy. Unfortunately, in the end, being sucked up by Lady True is not fun, and it does kill him. There was like this really sad moment with him and Angela. He sent away the other people to help stop Lady True, but he kept Angela there, and she's like, why did you keep me here? I could have been helping them. And he just said, I don't want to die alone. It was just like, oh, that really got me good. So dialogue. Now, this show has really good dialogue. I mean, HBO shows, you're gonna get quality dialogue. The characters, they really play off each other well, and you know, that banter between them a lot of times, it's really fun to follow. There's actually surprisingly not a whole lot of exposition in the dialogue because they do a lot of flashbacks. Like I said, I would prefer it that way, especially when they use the flashbacks creatively like they did in this show. It's really good. There's no problem there. Dialogue, no problem. Really good dialogue. Yeah, Watchmen is a really good show, and I really enjoyed watching it. And even though it didn't give me like that Watchmen DC comic book vibes, I still really like it for what it is. I like the characters and the conflict that they created and how the writers adapted the material to fit into modern times. If you like thought-provoking shows and shows that just make you think about not just your life but people's lives around you, this show is definitely for you. It makes you take a second guess and a second look at things around you and situations around you, and it's just a really good show. I really love philosophy and like the religious undertones of it all. I would suggest that you guys check it out. So yes, that will be it for today's episode. That will be it for today's video. If you guys want, I do have a website. I will leave a link down below, but I will have an article version of this video down there. Next week, I'm going to be doing His Dark Materials. I will be doing a reaction to Sabrina, the Chilling Adventures of Sabrina Season 3, Episode 1 probably. I will be watching The Mandalorian too. I don't know when that's going to be happening. I know I'm very late on that bandwagon, but I will be soon. I'm very scared to get Disney Plus because of that whole like people hacked into it and got credit card informations, but I think I might take the chance. I don't know, maybe I should wait. No, there's a bunch of Marvel new shows coming out and I'm definitely gonna be doing those, like WandaVision, Winter Soldier and the Falcon, and Loki. Like, I really want to watch those shows too, so maybe I should just wait to do it. Maybe I'll wait to do Disney Plus. Oh my gosh, maybe I'll do that. Maybe I'll do that. That's a smart idea. Okay, thank you. Anyways, this is it for today's episode. I hope you enjoyed. Leave a like, leave a comment, leave a subscription, and have a great day.